Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to an insightful discussion on a pertinent topic. Building a talent marketplace, re-evaluating, re-examining, and recoding talent. Yes, those are too many emphasizing the importance to look at talent and talent marketplace with new lens. I'm delighted to introduce and welcome two eminent speakers who will help us expand our perception on this topic. Please join me in welcoming Aditya Gupta, Regional Head, Southeast Asia, Darwinbox. Aditya primarily enjoys help people leaders translate their people vision into reality across the Southeast Asia region. His illustrious career of 12 plus years spans multiple sectors, including automotive, aviation, BFSI, and more. Aditya has worked extensively both with government and private companies, supporting them by developing solutions and leading specialized delivery teams with a focus on driving transformation. Welcome to the show, Aditya. And we also have with us Cher Whee Sim, VP Global Talent Acquisition, Mobility and Immigration at Micron Technologies. Cher Whee is a senior global leader with 25 plus years of experience. She has shaped the high-performing culture in the industry and Micron by employing innovative human resource solutions to attract, engage, and retain top talent, diverse talent. She has successfully spearheaded projects by balancing the human element and corporate objectives, resulting in empowered teams with a high desire to pursue organizational excellence. Viewers, given their stellar background and hands-on experience in talent management, this dialogue will be nothing short of power-packed nuggets of information. With that, I request Aditya to take over and lead this dialogue with Cher Whee. And dear viewers, please share your thoughts and inputs using the comment tab. Over to you, Aditya.
Thank you, Pooja, for that. Thank you, Cher Whee, for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. So I think I'm very fortunate that I'm getting to pick your brains on this conversation and this topic, which is really pertinent today. Wanted to quickly start off with something that's relatively quite talked about today, right? Everyone seems to be talking about the Great Resignation, but I also see that as an opportunity. I'd love to understand, as a talent acquisition leader, as a talent acquisition professional, how are you seeing things today?
A very good evening to Aditya too, and everyone. Definitely it's my honor to be part of this panel discussion. What a great question to start with, the impact of Great Resignations from a talent lens perspective. And to your point, I totally celebrate in terms of, yes, it's definitely stressful with the Great Resignation. At the same time, with the Great Reshuffling, we're definitely seeing talent in the marketplace are being very active. In fact, you see talent that might not be actually thinking about career change. They start thinking about that. So this whole reshuffling, I think a lot of company is going to benefit from it at the same time while they lose some of their critical talent. And I would say that in the last 2 years with the pandemic and also with this Great Reshuffling and the Great Resignation, we literally see a couple of shifts in terms of the talent expectations and behavior. And I will say that broadly, I will identify in 3 aspects of it. One is we talk a lot about candidate experience. And I think it's much more than that now. That experience need to translate to what the talent trust, the candidate trust of the company or the opportunity that they're looking for. And if we look at the trust, it's literally about the competency of the company. Where are they taking leaderships, be it their technology, be it their people and culture. And I think the other big shift that we see is upon the company in terms of how do they show up that they earn that trust and continue to show that they care for the community, care for their employees, and also care for the talent market itself, right? Yeah, and of course, at the same time, the third piece of it is from expectations and behavior, with what we all live through, the future of workplace with greater, flexibility of our work arrangement, including remote working, is definitely a way to go for many of these talents that are looking for change. So I will broadly look at these three aspects of the change from a talent attraction piece of it.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a very important point that you brought up about earning the talent's trust and the great reshuffling, right? So, and that's a really interesting opportunity because across the region, we are also seeing our clients ramp up on their hiring. And we're seeing across the region significant motions in terms of building an onboarding experience. That's great. Ensuring that employees are effective, ensuring employees are actually plugging in. Because more and more companies today are open to actually building out that remote workplace, right? So suddenly remote is an option, right? And I think that's a very interesting one, definitely. And I think, Cher Whee, if I had to ask you, right, and I get the oddity of the question, but let me ask you this still. How do you really define talent and how do you actually discover it internally at Micron? What are some of the things that you're doing to define talent really well? And what are you doing to discover it?
Right, great, and a great question. So as we look at from the talent definitions, both internal and external, I think first thing first is our capability to literally define talent. All right, and I'm sure as we all heard about how do we really be more progressive and be more proactive in terms of the current language of headcount planning, right? I think in the past, if you can look ahead about 6 months, it's probably a good job. But I think today with this talent, place, you literally for organization from a headcount planning is to be able to look ahead 6 to 12 months. And that is challenging because how am I going to predict where is going to be the turnover, right? So that I can literally look ahead. So I think that is where, as you look at how do you incorporate the potential areas that you need, it requires the company to really put a lens more from what will be the technology investment, that what are the new skills that is needed in the organization. So even if some skill set that are turned over, you can mobilize your internal talent and then invest in the new skill that you're looking at. And at the same time, we know that the next phase of maturity of the talent needs is go beyond the headcount, but it's literally looking at a more skill-based, talent planning. And what does that mean is that, you, beside being able to articulate what is that, future of work look like, which I'm sure we all went through so-called the digital transformation. If you step back and think about it 5 years ago, we were at a very early stage of digital transformation. We're still trying to articulate what does that mean to us. And it's great that companies have over time defined 5 levels of digital academic skill from all team members need to know to literally the expertise that need to know at the highest level. And definitely with all the sustainability and also the hospitality economics that is booming out, the applications for semiconductor perspective will influence the product design and which will then push the skill and competency requirements. So I think that's also one area that we need to, as a company, we need to also make progress in terms of looking at it from how do we define talent from not just a headcount, but to a skill base. And once when we do that, then we want to look at the talent market comprehensively, which include the internal talent market and the external talent market. So for the internal talent market, definitely, we need to continue to be really promoting what we call a healthy talent mobility in a way that we do have an internal job opportunity, posting where our team members have visibility of all the opportunity globally and allow them to apply for it. And in fact, in the last 12 months, a lot of our senior engineers and managers positions are filled by the internal talent market. And of course, what is also interesting to observe is that more than 60% are taking a lateral transfer. So it's no more about promotions, but learning new skill, learning different skill. And that's extremely encouraging. And I think if you relate to earlier on, we talked about great reshuffling, you can see these are happening internally too, right? From a great reshuffling. And I think that is one way for us to be able and then tie back to the retentions. But of course, with the complexity of the pandemic, travel is limiting, and therefore immigrations and mobility have to be part of the talent solution. From an external talent market, we definitely have aspirations to look at talent beyond the borders in considerations of the immigrations and mobility challenges. And when we identify some of this really niche skill, definitely the sourcing capability is important to really go after niche skill, in terms of how do we reach out. But at the same time, we also want to leverage on our internal team members network through our referral program, which is a channel that we find highly effective. And at the same time, we recognize that as we look at the external talent, definitely the underrepresented group, which is the ethnicity, the gender, the people with disability, the veterans, is also our targeted talent pool. And we want to be able to leverage creative, innovative solutions such as the machine learning and the AI to facilitate and make this process much more effective. So what do I mean by that? So for example, in terms of machine learning, we actually deploy a job, job description writing tool that allow us to really score and give us a feedback whether the job description is gender neutral, and give us a score so that we know, we have to be very aware about how do we write a job description which will be appealing, right, to the targeted talent market that we are interested in. And also at the same time, like how do we use AI from our candidate applications process, which also facilitate a personal career site, which will guide the candidates in terms of, based on their skill set and experience, give them some nudging where they should be considering to apply, especially for female who have to be 120% confident before they apply for a job, for example, right? So I think, if I look at to sum up both internal, external, we require innovation, we require really, a bold step in terms of leveraging all channel for the reach out of talent. And also earlier on, we discussed in terms of understanding what is the talent expectations and building that trust through that process through.
No, absolutely. And thank you so much for actually covering the whole talent landscape, right? And I think you've pretty much answered my next question, but I think broadly, if I may add to that, right? When we are looking at talent across our client base, what we are also finding and observing is, while companies are looking at skills and competencies more consciously, they're also at the same time evaluating talent from a lens of performance, potential, and engagement.
That's
right? And they're starting to actually double down on potential and engagement. We've seen companies starting to evaluate on learning agility. We've seen companies starting to focus on actually how are managers engaging people, and also building out career paths and career lattices which allow for individual contributor roles as well as team leader roles to be separate, right? So elevation and hierarchy doesn't always have to be large team management. And
totally.
I think if we see that level of maturity, then the right kind of talent can elevate themselves to the right levels in organizations. And I really liked your approach to expanding the talent pools, where you talked about how you want to be more conscious of who you are assessing and how you're assessing them. I think that's a really great step in terms of ensuring that the JDs are not biased, ensuring that you're looking at wider and wider talent pools. What we've also seen is firms are starting to tie up with a number of integration platforms and tech platforms to reach out to larger number of candidates across the world. So we are seeing firms integrate with job boards as far away in Brazil and in India and in Singapore and in Philippines for a job which would traditionally have been in one country, in one market someplace. So I think that's becoming increasingly important. And I think that perspective that you brought about how you're leveraging AI and ML to ensure that your talent process is neutral is really, really important in this day and age. I think that will become very important.
Yeah, I think you are spot on in terms of how do we integrate technology. And indeed, we recognize that beside the the application process, even in the interactions, with the whole pandemic, the Zoom, everybody is so into the Zoom world. It's get to a little bit of a Zoom fatigue, right? And a lot of this interaction is virtually. So indeed, we partner with one of the service provider to really deliver what we call a platform that allow more targeted in terms of the chat with our Micron insider. So for example, instead of just reading about the company culture in terms of all the great diversity, inclusion, and quality and sustainability of Microns, at the same time, also to be able to connect with the person that's going to do the job and do a chat with the person, ask the person about what is the day like as a product engineer, what is the culture like, how do your leaders live through that. And we also facilitate what we call live chat, come and talk to us, where you can be in the panel, you can select who you want to talk to, ask the questions. And we definitely need to continue to expand how do we, build that relationship and also continue to build that trust. So I think the technology is great. We want to be able to, continue to hire with empathy and empowered by technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I as a technologist, I love the word empowered by technology, right? So because at the end of the day, technology has to be the right enabler. It's not the end all and be all, but we have to be the right enablers for the right processes. I'm also loving this whole a day in the life of or a chat in the life of with a Micron person. So that's a beautiful initiative, and many kudos to the team that came up with that. What I'd love to understand a little bit more is around your key talent practices at Micron Technologies. Specifically, I think I want to understand how are you ensuring that you're training and empowering with tech? How are you ensuring that you're hiring for diversity? How are you ensuring that you're doing the right things? So would love to understand a little bit more about the talent practices.
I think from a talent practices, there's a couple of areas. Number one is, from a DEI perspective, we look at as Microns, we have 6 commitments, and one of them is literally to increase representation. And a part of that is really to facilitate and to really drive a diversity of hiring. And, so across the board, we understand that, when we leverage on technology, what is also critical to calibrate upfront is what is our talent expectation. So from attributes of our value to what other attributes are important that will be successful, we need to calibrate that and then build into our inclusive hiring practice, which includes earlier on we shared about our diverse lead that empowered by technology, to introducing candidate allies where we have underrepresented group in the interview panel, in the interview team, so that when the candidates see someone like them, they feel so much more comfortable. We leverage on technology to anonymize our resume, and definitely also in terms of our referral programs, we add in a tier for the diverse candidates. So I think first from a diversity of hirings, talent practices, we definitely have spent time calibrating what is the expectation, the attributes, and then continue to build around our inclusive hiring practice. And the other aspect on the talent practice is what we recognize that, as we build on the diversity, inclusion, and equality, is really with the shift in the workplace, workforce, and leadership, it's so critical for us to take a holistic approach actually to the whole person. So what do we mean by that, a holistic approach to the whole person? Literally is the physical well-being to the mental well-being to the social well-being, career well-being, and physical well-being. So for example, earlier on, we talked about, learning and development. So from a career well-being, we definitely, want to really encourage everybody to see that a mindset shift, in fact, for all team members around the world to own their development. And we started a program called Empower Career, where we actually help our team members to learn how do they discover, how do they explore, how do they partner through mentorship programs so that they can own their career development, their career, learning, and of course, eventually it will lead to some level of progression. So I think that part of it is really one areas that we are hearing a lot from our team members is they want to also be able to design their career path. So today they might be in an engineering role. Tomorrow they want to get rotated to a finance role, which was what happened to myself. I was able to start as a wafer fab engineer, get to do industrial engineering, get to do financial planning in finance, and later get to do technical training and eventually HR, full portfolio of HR in Asia, and now with the global talent acquisition role. So I think this is what...
That's a very interesting roller coaster, right? Right from a wafer engineer all the way through to so.
Yes. Yeah, and we need to continue to invest on that piece of owning their development, and of course the leaders need to facilitate those conversations too, right? And the other piece in terms of the whole person is really the mental and the physical. So I'm sure we all have gone through a lot and hear a lot from mental well-being, and we want to continue to support team members by institutionalized role like team members advocate and well-being specialists, where team members can go for one-on-one discussions, being work or personal related. And we did see team members who probably go through certain level of depressions and are able to get out of it. So I think from a talent practice, there's the other approach on the whole person in terms of that 5 aspect of that whole person. I think thirdly, in terms of the talent practice, to your earlier discussions, also the part about, in terms of the future of work, the flexibility of workplace and workforce. We are definitely, as a global, we in our core is still very much in our facility and manufacturing environment where we are front end and assembly and test. So we want to be very thoughtful. What are roles that will continue to be very effective as we work remotely versus the in-person kind of interaction, right? Yeah, so I think that is also the other talent practices that we are engaging, running pilot, engaging all the workforce to give us the feedback, the focus group, the dialogue session, so that it will be meaningful for them, right? Yeah.
And you want to build that sense of equitable behavior across the org, right? So you don't want folks to be saying, hey, why are X number of people in office and why are we always outside of office and all of that? And you have to ensure that the workplace feels everyone's carrying their weight and everyone's contributing. I also think that when I'm looking at talent management, right, it's a two-way street. And what we are starting to see increasingly is firms are investing more on, like I had said earlier, about the career lattices and about publishing those ladders and hierarchies actively and proactively. And employees are starting to do more around that ownership, right? So I loved how your employees are able to select, and that becomes important. This competency or skill, and this is how I'll invest in it, be it through an internal job portal or be it through a training. And how do you bring all of that in one place becomes very, very critical. What we're also seeing quite often and quite frequently nowadays is succession planning and planning for roles which used to happen only for the top tier roles is starting to percolate. We are seeing actually managers think about their teammates. We are seeing managers think about their colleagues across levels and not just at the top of the house. And I think that becomes very, very important. How can we democratize data around competencies? How can we democratize data around these are the competencies I need to acquire to go from wafer engineer all the way through to TA, right? If I may do that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that becomes
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, it's so right, so right. Yeah, and in fact, I think in terms of that whole succession planning, what we've done over the last couple of years is also to get into really the talent calibrations and the talent review process, which allow not just the top job but deeper into the organization, the leadership bench strength, be it the people leadership or the technical leadership, and that's where you will be very thoughtful about whether you build them, you buy them, or you rent them, right? Yeah. So I think this piece on the succession planning, and it's also not so much about just the hard skill, but it's also the the soft skill piece of it that's really important. I think we recognize one of the key attributes for our talent selections and identification is adaptability, right? How do you adapt? How do you be agile in this highly unprecedented, complex, world? Ability to do that, and agility actually is a big piece in terms of how do you build your ability or coping mechanism, which then transform and show up as resilience, right, of that individual. So yeah, we spend a lot of time, really identify this attribute and then build into our talent review and calibration process, and then build into our succession planning. And that also allow us to really take a very thoughtful rotational programs. If we see that these talents, even internally, we, into my own organizations, I rotate, my hypo to the, to the HR business partner team. I rotate my hypo to the DI team so that they get a broader perspective, and one of them actually transferred to the DI, and the other hypo came back and got promoted to a leadership role, right? So I think you literally are seeing that kind of dynamic, and it's great because you actually create a very dynamic internal job market, which is what the team members really welcome to. And we also want to be able to ensure nobody left behind, right, in such a transformation. Some team members need a little bit more nudging, a little bit more ability to show a path forward. And we all know from a change management, about 14 to 18% will be the early adopter. The other group will be, they will definitely be part of the change. It's always the tail end that will be, oh, I don't have a choice but come along. And that is where programs such as Empowered Career, we want all team members to know it's for everyone and we own it, right? So because at the end of the day, if you don't own it, it's really difficult to just feeding, because that is like just giving you information. You need to digest and internalize it too.
I think those days are far gone, right? Where where you push and nudge and shove people into a box. I think, but yeah, I absolutely agree with the whole fact that the tail takes some time to come through the door, right? And how can we shorten that? How can we engage with different people? Is something that we are seeing increasingly. Like, I think as a tech firm, one of the things that we are overly investing in is how do we do the talent search, right? How do we ensure that we have the skills and the robust skill inventories across the company to ensure that people are very proactively being able to look for stuff and they don't start looking outside. How do you actually make a frictionless marketplace, right? And I think really that's the key. How do you make the internal and the external marketplace frictionless? How do you make sure that, and I think that's the utopian world that we want to work towards. But so
I appreciate you call us the frictionless of the internal job market. I will have to tell you that, sometimes it's really difficult to let go, your top guy to another organization. Let's face the
No,
reality.
absolutely. Your point of building a healthy marketplace, right? That word healthy is actually really, really critical.
About healthy, right? We definitely have defined some what we call engagement rule across the board and allow each organization to tweak whatever it makes sense for them. But I think now it's even stronger than ever that leaders understand that if they don't provide such an opportunity, they are going to lose them eventually. So you rather rotate them to other organizations, and the chances that they might come back to you is so much more higher too, right? So I think there is a lot of motivations for leaders to do it today. And we also run leaders-led sessions to help leaders to, they have to facilitate. They also equally important that they own a lot of this process to really inspire, motivate, and engage the team members to see and take courage, the courage to trust the organization, trust the leader, courage to try, and the courage to tell too, right? So those are really important. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And that whole training and enabling of leaders through leaders becomes very, very important. Like, I think it's extremely critical, right? So,
if anytime any leaders call me, I know I go in and manage. Yeah, a little bit more, but all are good.
Yeah. Because I think initially the whole rotation started off as lemon trading, and now how do you ensure that it's actually really, really healthy? It's a vibrant marketplace becomes very, very important. How do you ensure that leaders appreciate that if my talent goes away from my unit, doesn't mean he's gone away from the firm, and he's actually still contributing to the org, and that's very, very important. And I think if we can build that trust both at a leader level as well as at an employee level, that hey, if I apply for an IJP, I'll not have repercussions. I think we're seeing that increasingly.
And we define a matrix that is for your senior positions. How many percent of that are filled up by your internal fill rate? And we put that in front of the leaders that you.
That's a beautiful one.
So, sometimes it's important for us to kind of think of a motivating language and a motivating metrics that we all commonly share. And it's also really great that our executive vice presidents are all behind that. And I can bring some of these metrics to also the CEO staff so that we continue to calibrate. We own the whole organization talent together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a spectacularly easy metric for people to take on and ensure that they're leveraging it right. I think I'm also conscious of the time, Cher. So I'd love to end the session, so to speak, with one last question. And I know this is a little cliched, but we're just in that start of the year, so still need to ask you this. What are some of the key trends you see that we need to watch out for in 2022? So what are some key elements that you're seeing moving, shifting across? And what are some key trends that you're seeing we need to watch out for?
Right, definitely into the 2022, and also with the ongoing battering of the COVID and the pandemic, I think definitely what we also seeing is that I think from an external talent market perspective, there is definitely growing interest on the this great reshuffling. But at the same time, I think there's also a little bit of conscious in terms of what does that mean for them, and many of them also their family, right? Because they want to also be able to stay close with the family. So I think organizations need to continue to build that trust with the candidates, with the talent market, that it's not just about the job opportunity, but truly care for them as a whole person, right? So I think that is one trend that is going to continue to amplify, in terms of how the company show up, in terms of your commitment of your own culture, and also in terms of your inclusions and also the growth perspective. And I think the other trends that we are definitely also all seeing it is that there's a lot of, especially maybe in the semiconductor space, with huge talent shortages. We also continue to hear a lot of this investment of building, the new facility. And I think one of the areas that companies need to continue to see is that it's no more enough to just acquire talent, because the pie is only going to be the same size, right? We need to expand the pie, quickly and largely. And to do that, companies need to come forward and build the talent pipeline, right? Even from the engaging the university to really invest in the curriculum in the building. So I think that is going to demand more of company, how to integrate, partner the governments, the industry to really play an active role in building the talent pipeline so that you can acquire them when the time comes. So I think that is also the other trend that we're going to see more and more of that. And the third trend is earlier on, we talked about hiring with empathy, empowered by technology. I think technology has been in the TA space for a while, but I think also companies are taking a step back and rethink how do you truthfully enable, empowered by technology, and continue to be able, the solution to enable us to build that trust, that empathy, right, with both the internal and the external talent.
No, absolutely. I think those are some great forecasts, and I think those will definitely age well in terms of when we look back at this next year. But I think I totally agree with that, right? How do you build and expand that talent pie, and how do you ensure? And some of the things that we are proactively investing in is our ability for our clients to actually look at how do they scale workforces across borders, right? Mm-hmm. Suddenly borders are starting to melt away to a certain extent, but how do you actually ensure that you're discovering the right talent in the right places? Suddenly the talent is no longer in just one city or one country, it's suddenly all over the place. So how do you ensure that you're discovering talent across? Another piece that we are seeing is how do you actually ensure that discovery and building of leaders internally becomes frictionless? How do you ensure that you're doing that training? How are you ensuring that you're doing that capability building internally becomes very, very important. So how do you make that vibrant talent marketplace? How do you make that vibrant skill visibility within the organization becomes critical? And I think in the short term with the reshuffling, I see the whole focus on acquisition and onboarding talent, building and earning that trust, like you said, becoming very, very important, right? How do you ensure that they bleed the color of the company, right? At the end of the day, once their onboarding is over, right? How can I ensure that somebody who's joining the firm actually starts believing in working the way? Because the physical workplace and the digital workplace are very, very different, right? So how do I ensure that happens becomes very, very critical. But I think those are very insightful points. And thank you, Cher Whee, for spending time with us. Really, really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much to you too. I learned so much from you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
And I'll hand it back to Pooja for closing remarks, and then we'll...
Thank you, Aditya and Cher Whee, for that crisp, discerning knowledge sharing on talent attraction, allocation, development, and fulfillment. There have been a lot of takeaways for me. Today, career progression is not a function of only skills, but talent's ability to adapt, potential, productivity, and engagement are essential traits. Having underrepresented individuals in interview panel is a great booster for the DE&I agenda, and many, many more such takeaways. Viewers, I hope you found this conversation informative and walking away with great tangible takeaways. But before you go, please share your thoughts and inputs using the comment tab. Thank you, Cher Whee, and thank you, Aditya from ETHR World's team for being a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.